Okay, so now we want to look at some examples and we'll be solving two questions for ratios and then two questions under proportions. Now let's look at the very first question. It's not written on the board, so I'm going to dictate it so you can listen very carefully so that when I'm solving the questions, you understand what I'm doing. Now, the first question says that suppose some persons, and those persons they are Mr. A and B. Some persons start a partnership business. Some persons start a partnership business and then they decide to divide the profit between them in the ratio 2 to 4. 2 to 4. Now, if the total profit is $10,000, this is the total profit, $10,000. What will be their part of the profit? So now the question is, we have two persons in a partnership business. Now they decide to maybe split up and divide the profit of their business, and that is dividing the profit in the ratio 2 to 4. 2:4. And these are the two persons here involved in the division, and say that the total amount they want to divide between each other is $10,000. So the question is now, what will each of them get? Now, solution. In such a question, the first thing you should do is you sum up the ratios. In such a question, you sum up the what? Ratio. First step, sum up the ratio. Why? Because the ratio represents the total amount of money you want to divide. So you have to what? First of all, sum it up. So now the ratios here are what? 2 and 4. So you're going to sum them up. 2 and 4, that will give you 6. Now, the next thing you're going to do is that for each of the ratio, you divide them by the sum of the ratio and you now multiply it by the total sum of the amount or number which you want to divide. So let's say for Mr. A, we are assuming that Mr. A belongs to this ratio of 2. Then Mr. B belongs to this ratio of 2. That's how we want to assign it, because it just told us that we have two partnerships, which is A and B. So let's say Mr. A is number 2, while Mr. B is number 4. So let's say for Mr. A, we want to find out how much he is going to get from the 10,000. So what we do is now say, since number 2 ratio belongs to number A, or Mr. A rather, we now say 2 all over the total, which is what? 6, multiplied by 10,000, which is the total amount of money. So now, when you do that, you now have 2 times 10,000 is 20,000 divided by 6. And when we now divide 20,000 by 6, it's going to give us something in the range of $3,333.33. So we've gotten the amount that Mr. A will get out of the $10,000 to be divided in the business partnership. But now let's look at how much will Mr. B get. Mr. B has a higher ratio, so naturally it's assumed that he will have the higher amount of money. So we'll now take the value from Mr. B, which is the ratio from Mr. B, which is 4, put it over 6, which is the sum of the ratio, and multiply it by 10,000. Now that will give us 40,000 divided by 6. And then when you now divide that, it's going to give us about $6,666.67. So you can see how easy it is to obtain the ratio of for a particular amount to be shared among two individuals. The first thing you have to do is, first of all, sum up the ratio, and then when you sum up the ratio, you now divide each of the individual ratio by the total sum and multiply it by the total amount to be divided. I hope that's clear. Now let's go to the second Let's go to the second question. Okay, let's go now to the second question and the second example. And it says, a mother divides a certain amount among three of her children by the name of Ron, Sam, and Mariah in the ratio 2 to ratio 3 to ratio 5 respectively. Now, if Mariah gets $150, find the total amount shared and the amount received by Ron and Sam. Now, in the question, it says the ratio of the children in the division of the money is 2 to ratio 3 to ratio 5, which means that Ron gets 2, Sam gets 3, and then Mariah gets 5 in terms of the sharing of the money. Now, it gives us the amount that Mariah gets, which is what, $150, but we are asked to find the total amount of the money that is shared and the amount that Sam will receive and the amount that Ron will also receive. So let's get to the solution of this question. Now, we're still going to use the same tactics or the same techniques that we used in solving the previous one, in that the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add what? We're going to sum up the what? The ratio. Sum up the what? The ratios. And that is 2 plus 3 plus 5, which is equals to 10. We sum up the ratios, which will give us 10. 2 plus 3 plus 5 equals to 10. Now, we'll now apply the knowledge of how much that Mariah gets to help us to calculate the total amount of the money that was shared. Now, we know that Mariah got $150 out of the shared money. And we also know that she has a ratio of 5/10 of the money. So that means that 5/10 times the total money, let's call this the total money, will now be equal to $150. This is the ratio of Mariah. This is the total ratio, which we added from the individual ratios to get the sum, which is 10. Then when we multiply it by the total money, we're going to get $150, which is Mariah's share. So now what do we do now? We now multiply both sides by 10 so that we can now eliminate the fraction in this left-hand side of the equation. So what we'll do, we now say 5/10 times total money times 10 is equals to 150 times 10. So we multiply both sides by 10. So 10 will cancel 10. You will now have 5 times total money is equals to 1,500. So in order for us to now be able to know what we're going to get as our total money, we divide both sides by what? 5. Divide both sides by 5, divide here by 5. So now, when we divide here by 5, we're going to be left with the total money is now equal to what? 1,500 divided by 5 will give us what? $300. So the total money shared is equal to $300. Remember how I got this? I used the knowledge of how much that Mariah was given. She was given $150. Then out of the $150, we know that her own ratio is 5. So when we added the individual ratios, I now divided her own by the total, which is 10, and multiplied it by the total money, which we didn't know, and that gave us our 150. Then after applying, the multiplication and divisions and all that, I now got our total money shared, which is 300. So now let's look at Ron. Ron, how much did Ron get? Ron's share will be equal to his own ratio, which is 2, all over the total, which is 10 times 300. Then that will give you what? 600 all over 10. When you divide it, it's going to give you what? $60. $60. Then Sam's share, he had a ratio of 3, that's 3/10, times 300, which is equals to 900 all over 10. That will now give you what? $90. So when you add 90 plus 60 plus 150, it's going to give you what? The total of 300. So that's how we're able to what? Find the total amount shared and also find the individual share for the three siblings. That is Ron, Sam, and Mariah. Okay. Okay, now just look at the next two examples. These examples will be under proportions. The first one was under ratios, so these two examples will be under proportion. Now, the first one here says, find out if the ratios 6 to 8 and the ratios 24 to 32 are proportional. The second one says, if a driver covers a distance of 40 kilometers in 2 hours, what distance will he cover in 8 hours? Now, the first one, I'm going to find out if the ratios 6 to 8 and the ratios 24 to 32 are in proportion. Now, to do that, first of all, we know that this ratio 6 to 8 and 24 to 32 can be expressed as 6 all over 8 and 24 all over 32. That we know that. Now, for them to be proportional, they have to what? Be equal to each other. Equal is the symbol used to denote proportions. So we are asked to find out if these ratios are proportional. So if they are proportional, then they must be equal to each other. Now, we know that 6 over 8 and 24 over 32 are ratios. In order for them to be proportional, that means that 6 over 8 or 6 divided by 8 must be equal to 24 over 32. So to find that, let us see what happens when we reduce them to their lowest term. So when we reduce this one to its lowest term, it's going to give me 3 over 4. Reduce this one to its lowest term, we have 12 over, is it 16? Reduce this one, give me 6 over 8. So 3 over 4 is equal to what? 6 over 8. So now, I want to divide 3 by 4. Dividing 3 by 4, I'm going to get 0.75. Then I also want to divide 6 by 8. If I divide 6 by 8, I still get the same thing of what? 0.75. And since I have 0.75 on the left hand side when I divide 3 by 4, and I have 0.75 when I divide 6 by 8 on the right hand side, and that means that what? That these two, 6 ratio 8 and 24 ratio 32 are proportioned or proportional. Once again, for two ratios to be proportional, they must be equal to each other. And so what I did is I took these two ratios, I equated them to each other after converting them to their fractional form. And after doing that, I now reduced them to their lowest term, and I now divided the numerator by the denominator, which now gave me the same value of their decimal number. So once they are equal to each other, then they are automatically proportional. Now for the second example, if a driver covers a distance of 40 kilometers in 2 hours, what distance will he cover in 8 hours? Now, normally or rationally, we know that once you're driving for longer hours, you're going to cover more distances. So let's just say that let x be the distance. We don't know what the distance will be, but we just assume that it will be longer or greater because of the greater time. So we have 2 hours, 40 kilometers. How many kilometers will we get in 8 hours? Now, therefore, we're going to have 2 hours to 8 hours. 2 to ratio 8 for the time. And then we're going to have is equal to 40 to ratio x, which is unknown, our unknown. This is for the time. 2 hours to ratio 8 for the time, 40 to ratio x for the distance. So we can represent it as 2 over 8 is equal to 40 all over x. And you can see that this expression is now giving us one of the properties of the proportion, which is the alternate or inverted property. And in this case, now what do? You can either cross multiply like this, or you can interchange. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to interchange like this, which will now give me something like x is equal to 40 times 8 all over 2. I take this here and I multiply this by this. So now x is equal to 40 times 8. I can say 2 divide itself, and 2 divide 8 is 4. So x will now be equal to what? 40 times 4, which is now giving me 160 kilometers. So that is the distance that the driver will cover in 8 hours. So these are the ways that you can apply the rules or formulas of ratios and proportions in solving these particular questions. And then with that, I've come to the end of the lesson of today. I hope that you understood. If the explanation seemed a bit fast, then you can go back and rewatch the videos. But if you have any questions, you can drop it in the comment section. Also, don't forget to subscribe and get notified by clicking the notification bell. And I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.